Hello, I'm Tim Melton, Talk 99.5 Assistant News Director, and today is the day I've been waiting for almost 20 years. Independence Day 2 happens tonight. We're going to go see it. This is Jon Lunceford. He's the Digital Content Coordinator with Cumulus Media. And Jon, I don't know if you know how excited I am for this film, but I feel like in a few minutes right here on this video, I'm going to be very disappointed after seeing it. I hope I'm not correct.
You build everything up so big, it doesn't matter what kind of movie it is. You did the same thing with Star Wars, you do it with Marvel movies, you did it with Batman vs. Superman, you do it with Bond movies. I could go on forever. But hey, you get excited about movies, that's why we go see movies. We're excited to be entertained, and Independence Day 2 is the next in line, and I think it'll be fairly entertaining.
Look, when you think back to quintessential 90s movies, there are a few that pop out. Jurassic Park,
right?
Titanic,
right?
Independence Day. What else you got?
Toy Story.
Toy Story, okay, yeah, but Toy Story, it spanned so far.
It does.
In its lifespan. That makes no sense. But let's get into Independence Day and why we're excited for it. First of all, I loved Independence Day for a couple reasons. Number one, there's so many characters in that movie that you love. You care about the president, you care about Jeff Goldblum, you care about Will Smith. Breakout movie for Will Smith.
Absolutely.
I mean, he stole the show.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of fallen off with his sci-fi stuff lately, but I mean, as far as sci-fi movie, it's a huge movie for him. I'm kind of disappointed he's not back.
Yeah.
I understand the comments he made, why he's not coming back. I'm glad Jaden Smith's not in this one to take his place, but it's just not going to be quite the same without Will Smith.
Yeah, you beat me to the punch there. I'm tired of Jaden Smith getting forced on us in every movie we want to see that has Will in it. But once again, no Will Smith in this movie unless, like, the whole internet has stayed quiet about that, and we're about to see it in Independence Day Resurgence here. But once again, my expectations for this movie in particular as a standalone are sort of low, but I love the first one so much. Came out in 1996, grossed who knows how many $1 million. It was one of the highest grossing movies of all time. I think right now it's still in the top 60 highest grossing movies of all time. So once again, Independence Day, awesome 90s movie. I hope Independence Day 2 is an awesome 2016 movie.
Could be The Empire Strikes Back. Who knows? They're saying they want to make this a trilogy now, not wait 20 years until they make the next one, but hey, it could be the better of the three. Who knows?
All right. Well, after covering all this horrible news throughout the day, I'm finally going to get a chance to relax, go see Independence Day 2, maybe shut my brain off for just a few minutes. But until then, what I want you to do is enjoy this scene from the original Independence Day where President Whitmore rallied the troops to fight the alien race. Let's go see Independence Day 2.
All right.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind. Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore. We will be united in our common interest. Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July, and you will once again be fighting for our freedom. Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live, to exist. And should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
You just saw the best scene from Independence Day. That was the speech that Bill Pullman gave as President Whitmore. Probably the best speech ever by a president in cinematic history. Would you go that far? Is there anything that jumps to your head?
Nothing else comes to mind, but I gotta say it's definitely one of the best speeches probably in cinematic history as far as just a good rally the troops speech.
And I will say that they milk that speech a lot in Independence Day Resurgence. Now, one thing that's very important to us is that we don't spoil the movie-going experience for you. So it's safe to assume, even though you've already seen it in the description, that this is a spoiler-free review. We want to re-emphasize we will not be spoiling anything for you. But if you've seen the first one, be warned that this one follows some of the same plot points. But first of all, let's get into what we liked about Independence Day Resurgence. And John, I'll start with you. What do you got for me?
So you have to say the graphics are good. I mean, CG's come so far. It wasn't bad in the first one. For 1996, you can go back now and watch it 20 years later.
Won an Oscar for Best Visual Effects.
Yeah, the movies you named, Jurassic Park, Titanic. I mean, there were plenty of things they had to do with those movies. A lot of it's, more miniature sets as opposed to we have CG to blow up the White House kind of stuff. But I don't know. I mean, the effects were really good in this one. The aliens are good. You see a lot of the trailers, like the alien weapons and all. So, I mean, they did a good job with it. A lot of the movies this year that have gotten destroyed, like Warcraft, great CG, that doesn't necessarily help the story. We'll talk about that in a second. But that's definitely a positive. If you want to go and be entertained by big explosions, cool weapons, and stuff like that, then you're going to have a good time.
All right. Well, he took one of mine. Once again, the visual effects are on par with any sort of big budget movie. This isn't going to be Sharknado 5 or whatever. There's actual money that's been put into the budget for visual effects. Now, does it rely a little bit too much on its visual effects compared to its storytelling? Probably so. One thing I really liked about it was that nostalgia factor. That thing that our generation craves, and that thing that takes you back to your childhood and really hits you right in the heart with something that connects you to an original entity or an original entry in a series, in a franchise. So I was happy that it started off strong with that nostalgia factor, and there were certain bumps within the road that really hit you right there and made you think of the first one. So I like that a lot. What else did you like about the movie? Do you have anything else to say positive?
To that point, I look at how Star Wars was done, and a lot of the things people liked about Star Wars was it had plenty of the original series in it, as far as how they did the movie, and I'm not going to try to spoil that even though it came out a long time ago, but that's what a lot of people liked about it, was it had a lot of original
It followed
aspects
some of the
to it.
same pacing of A New Hope.
Yeah, so, and I think there were parts of this, like you said, that kind of brought you back to the original 20 years ago. I think sometimes they relied on it too much.
Yeah.
But, I'm glad they didn't go completely different with it, and they still had bits and pieces of it here and there.
Now, the standout character for me in the movie, and John, once again, it's important. We haven't talked about this since we got out of the movie. But the standout character for me in the movie was Jeff Goldblum's dad. That guy looks like this movie was shot in 1997, which was a year after the original. He doesn't seem to age. He was the standout for me as a character in terms of brought the most interest to the screen. What's your opinion on that?
He's good. He hasn't aged a day since that movie. Jeff Goldblum definitely has since that movie. But the Doctor, to me, every time he says anything, even though it's cheesy, even though they're using him to be that cheesy laugh that you go, ha ha ha, it still makes you laugh. Every time he speaks, at least to me, he's still funny. I think it was good to bring him back now, which I'm not spoiling that, that's in the trailers, but
Right.
I think it was good to use him. You have plenty of the old people coming back. You got Jeff Goldblum, you got the president coming back, you have the kids coming back, even though it's different actors, but he's somebody that came back that I'm glad they utilized. Maybe a little too much, but he's definitely somebody I'm glad is back. Just like Jeff Goldblum's dad in the movie. I mean, that's the character that you don't see him much in the trailers, but the one scene he has in the trailers, you automatically laughed the first time you saw it. So it's a good comic relief. I think both of them are good comic relief in the movie, but that's who I got to go with.
Truly, all the old characters from the first movie that have made the jump into this one are really well used, and they all have their moment to shine, I think. So that's exciting, and it goes back to the nostalgia thing. I'm trying to think of other positives. I'll say this, the score for the original Independence Day, they didn't change it for this one. So cut and paste right into 2016 with the same score, and that was a smart move. Man of Steel, I'll be making a lot of Man of Steel references to this movie, but the first one I'll make is Man of Steel didn't want to use the Richard Donner, Christopher Reeves theme from Superman. They wanted to do their own thing and make it a little bit more dark in its pacing. And they should have brought back that original Superman score to sort of tell us, hey, this is Superman. But anyway, that's a whole nother movie review. I'm glad that they stuck with the original score. So, we've gotten all the positive things out, I think. Let me make sure I wrote a list. Another cool thing, the aliens, as he was talking about with the CG and all that. On foot, we got to see more alien action on foot, and I thought that was super cool. The aliens were always imposing when they were sitting at the driver's seat of the ship in the first one, in the cockpit of the ship in the first one. This one you get to see more alien on foot action, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it made them more menacing, something you couldn't do in 1996 probably, but they did it well in 2016. So let's get to what we didn't like.
If that's your last positive,
That's my last positive.
I'm going to start with that as a negative.
Really?
Because now in the first movie, like you said, spoiling the ending, when they go into the ship, the alien's just sitting there. It's almost kind of animatronic, and I don't even know if it was animatronic or CG, but it's menacing. I'm not saying it doesn't look menacing, but he just kind of sits there and you see him kind of turn his head, kind of do that the whole time. That's about as much as you get. Of course,
he murmurs.
Yeah, but of course when they're in the lab and he grabs the doctor's throat and all that kind of stuff, you see more of the alien then. But to me, it was almost too much. Now, I'm the kind of guy that loves to have everything spoiled. Tim can tell you that. I read about every movie before we go see it. I didn't for this one, because I knew we were going to shoot this video, and I said, you know what, I'm going to be a good boy for Tim. But I like to have everything spoiled. I like to have everything revealed. I hate keeping secrets. But in sci-fi movies, a lot of times I like to have things kind of brought back a little bit, and not just, hey, here's everything. And we saw more of the aliens, whereas we didn't really see them. It was all behind smoke and mirrors, kind of in the first movie. When he grabs the throat and he's in the lab, there's a lot of smoke going on from all the machines exploding and everything. I like that better than in a movie like this, where it's just like, hey, here's free reign, there's a million aliens running around. And, when you have the bigger aliens, which you see in the trailer, I don't know. I mean,
it worked for me.
It does too much. Now, the CG of it's great, don't get me wrong. It's like they're trying to do too much. And I think I kind of got that sense from the trailer. The ships are bigger. The aliens are bigger. It's Independence Day, bigger and better, better than ever before. But that kind of is a little too much for me. And it ended up being too much. I was hoping maybe everything they showed in the previews was as much as they showed the aliens. And it'd be kind of more secretive once you actually got into the movie. But it's full blown. The aliens are coming back and they're pissed. And you see you see a lot of
That's an understatement. The first thing, going back to visuals, one thing I didn't like. I liked the aliens on foot. John did not. When it gets back to the visual presentation of the movie, the thing I liked least about it visually was it was a very dark movie.
It was.
Visually. Now, I'm not talking about it was sinister and you can't take your kids to it. That's really up to them whether they want to see it. We didn't see many kids in there. But it's really dark composition. I mean, everything is either shot in a dimly lit room or outer space or what feels like the bottom of the ocean, or it's very dark, except there's a few desert shots that bring you back to that sort of 96 nostalgia from the first one. Very dark movie, and visually I wasn't really thrilled about everything I was seeing in terms of when there's actual important dialogue going on and you're just trying to follow the actors. It was a very low-lit movie.
The aliens have a lot of technology, but light bulbs is not one of the things that they have.
Right.
We saw the inside of the ship before, and it was very dark. All you can see is the green kind of from the lasers and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, it's a lot of the same stuff this time, but you're right. Every time they went to a bunker, and it's like, we're going to have a super secret, government meeting. Area 51 in the first movie was very white, very bright, very futuristic in the sense that it's very white, like you see in a lot of movies. This movie is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And I understand it's like we're in war and they've knocked out power and stuff like that, but they still have enough for the TV screens and the lasers and stuff like that, but didn't invest in any light bulbs. And you're right, every time they tried to do something, you couldn't tell. Maybe they were trying to make it more of an effect like, hey, here's a radar, so we're focusing on that light up instead of, the TV screens and stuff like that, and I got that, but yeah, except for when they went outside in the desert, and there's plenty of desert scenes before too, but they went inside to a nice brightly lit room so you
Yeah.
could see what the heck you were doing. And in this one, they never did that.
Now, let's get into some basic things here with the movie. Non-spoiler, once again. Okay. The last movie took place in 1996, and you get that reference a lot in this movie. This movie takes place in present time, but in an alternate reality from where the first one was set in. So, 1996's movie was set in New York, 1996. This movie is set in what's left of the Earth, 2016. So it feels different. You don't have that sense of this is reality. It's an alternate reality. There are certain changes to things. The only real noticeable change, this is the thing that just boggles my mind. They still use flashlights, sometimes, not enough. They still have basic technology that we have today. The only thing they have really different is their helicopter. They took the blades off their helicopter. And that is supposed to make us feel like we're watching a futuristic movie, but it's set in 2016, so that seems kind of pointless to me, that they were trying to redesign just a few things to let us see that it's an alternate reality. I don't know. Why take the blades off a helicopter? How does that help defend you from aliens? One of the most iconic scenes from the first one was when the White House blows up, and the helicopter blades are spinning, and the fire goes through the helicopter and blows up the blades. I guess they just didn't want to take any more risk with helicopter blades because the blades caused that crash. But I felt like that was just kind of weird, the alternate reality.
It was weird, and it was so different that it didn't even feel like it was the same universe that you're watching this movie in. It's almost like this could have been a completely standalone movie, and I don't think anybody would have been lost. This is the kind of movie I don't think you need to see the first one. Now you can respect a lot of things for the first one. You know, we know Will Smith wasn't in this one, so you can know what happened, you know, why his kid's there, stuff like that. You know, the president's, you know, old and got a gray beard, what did he look like in the first one? But still, I feel like in a sense, all you have to do is just kind of pay a slight little bit of attention to pop culture and understand Independence Day. And you can come into this movie because it's so different. Now I understand, it's like we have alien technology, it let us fix everything up bigger, better, and, you know, but it's so different that it doesn't feel like the same movie.
Here's my problem. Here's my biggest problem, I think, with the movie, other than the script. I won't get into that just yet. But the new characters just don't feel like real to me. They feel very glossy. They feel very, very textbook. Yeah, I didn't like any of the new characters. None of them resonated with me.
Too. It's like all the kids. The reason they had to replace them is because the kids, when they were little in the movie, didn't grow up to be the great supermodels. So we have to get the good-looking actors to come in. But the daughter grew up to look totally different than she did when she was a little kid, and so it's like, hey, we gotta get a whole new person for this. I know, maybe the kids didn't want to come back and do it. I don't know what the real story is, but it made them all look fake because it's like these aren't the same people that we liked, before. Yeah, they were little kids, but now they're grown up. They
weren't characters that could stand alone, which is why I disagree with you by saying you don't need to see the original, because every one of these new characters was related to some other character that we needed to care about, or they had a connection with a character who was related to somebody that we actually cared about from the first one. They were all sort of a product of the first character from the first movie, and I feel like if you don't have characters that can stand alone in the second movie, it's not a standalone movie. You need to see the first one to care about these characters. So that's my opinion on that. Other things that are awful about this movie. There are multiple times where people get these just debilitating migraines, and it annoyed me. I don't know. That's just a little pet peeve, but it happens like 5 or 6 times. People get migraines and fall to the ground, and it's like there's 3 or 4 people who have this problem because they had connection with the aliens from the first one, or since over the past 20 years.
It's an alien thing, though.
Right, but we had to see each and every one of them fall to the ground each and every time, and it happened 5 or 6 times, and it was really annoying. But that's just a small pet peeve. Here's another big one. There's no sense of like loss in this movie, which I go back to Man of Steel, where Metropolis is completely destroyed and everyone's celebrating Superman is doing a good job, and it's all this death that isn't even looked upon. You see people die in this movie. You see massive destruction, and nobody blinks an eye. Nobody bats an eye. There's one scene in particular of a stranded school bus. This isn't ruining anything, but a stranded school bus with a bunch of kids that don't know where their parents are. The earth is, who knows what the state of it is, and they're all just like cool, hanging out right outside the school bus, and they're all like cracking jokes about how the bus driver wanted to see his girlfriend or whatever, and it takes me out of any sort of emotional connection with the film because none of these characters have any sense of loss. None of them. There's this huge emotional scene where this guy's saying goodbye and he's saying it to his best friend and there's death and really sad, touching moment. And 5 seconds later, he's laughing in the hall. And, it's just, there's no sense of loss in this movie. Disagree with that or agree with that?
I disagree in the fact it's not that there's no sense of loss. Now, you see in the trailer, whole cities get leveled. So, it happened in the first one. You don't really talk about that because it's like, oh, those are just random citizens. But, when this main character does something, then it's like, oh, well, we all of a sudden care about this one person, I don't disagree with that because there are certain scenes, and I'm not going to spoil who it is, but there's certain scenes where they talk about, oh, I had a family member here, I had a family member there, and you can tell that it's affecting them. Now, it's not like I'm, so depressed that I'm going to go sit in my room for the rest of the movie. They are immediately back up and doing whatever, but it's not like they completely ignore the fact that so many places were destroyed that you didn't have some family member in some crazy part of the world that got hit by an alien ship either in 96 or now.
Instead of seeing that emotionally through acting, it's written in the script. I'm so sad that this person died. And you never see it emotionally in any of these people.
I'm not saying it's great acting when they say this happens.
It's not. It's not great acting.
It's not like it's totally ignored.
Yeah, it's the acting is not great, and the script is probably the worst I've seen in a long time. The dialogue is just so awful. Bunch of one-liners. I can't even begin to fathom how long it took them to put this together because they've been working on it for 20 years,
yeah.
And this is what you come up with. I mean, it was pretty weak in terms of a script, but someone's yelling at the video right now. I don't go to these movies to see great dialogue. I go to these movies to watch things get blown up. And if you're going simply to watch things get blown up and you don't care about character development and all that, then walk in about an hour into the movie and you'll have a great time probably. But the first hour is spent setting up things we don't care about. I don't feel as an audience that we care about. So that you'll have to be the judge of that if you plan on seeing this. Any final words from you on things you did not like about the movie?
Part of why I think it can be a standalone movie, you mentioned there's a lot of setting up in the first hour. There's a lot of remembering what happened. It's not like we're going to explain everything that happened in the first movie to catch you up, but it's, remember when 96 when this happened? Remember when this happened? Well, because this happened, now we have to do this. Well, because this happened, now we have to do this. So that's why it's almost kind of a refresher course. It's like, yeah, I remember when that movie came out. Yeah, Will Smith was in it, and he had a kid, and yeah, so-and-so was his wife, and Jeff Goldblum was in it, and this guy was his dad, and you kind of get the relationship.
Sort of glosses over it. You have to sort of suspend belief to really enjoy this movie, and that's tough for people like me that really want everything linked and nailed down and worked out, and you really have to suspend belief to just believe that, people... these people are in this situation again in the same exact roles with the same exact mistakes that were made in the first one by the human race. At times I was probably rooting for the aliens. That's sad to say. But only because there were mistakes that were made in the first one that were repeated in the second one, and they were shocked when
it's been 20 years, they forgot what mistakes
they're shocked when a shield deflects a laser or a bullet or a gun. It's like,
oh yeah, that happened last time.
Yeah, it happened
Silly
20
me.
years ago. The whole movie is set up like, we've been preparing for 20 years, and they fall in the same traps as before. It was like watching Wile E. Coyote chase the Roadrunner. It's like eventually, you've got to kind of learn what you're doing here and not fall into the same mistakes. Anyway, I think I made that very clear.
That's a good analogy.
Oh, well, it's a Melton analogy.
analogy.
All right, so let's get to our final grades here. Would you give this something positive, a positive grade for our viewing audience?
If you're going by positive, as in you get a passing grade, which is anything above a D minus, then yes. But I'm going to go with a C minus.
C minus.
Overall. The reason it's that high is because that's a 70 to 73 number grade. The effects were great, and I go more into a movie trying to be entertained. That's why I like a movie like Warcraft. Warcraft's script was terrible. As somebody who's played the game for 15 years now, the script was terrible, but the graphics were good. Everything about it was...
He was using graphics. Can you tell he's a video game guy? I'm just saying.
But it was a well put together movie in that regard. So I'm going to give them a lot of credit there because they just try to make it so big and expansive when it came to the aliens versus humans fight. So I'm going to give him a lot of credit for that. There's plenty of humor in it with the comic relief.
Now, does that humor work? That's your
It
judgment.
doesn't get to be too much sometimes, yes, but it's definitely needed. It was there in the first movie with plenty of characters, and it's there with a lot of the same characters this time. So I'm going to give it a C-. The negatives definitely go with, I didn't really like, for the most part, the kids in the movie. The new ones that they brought in as the all grown-up kids. Didn't like the script either. And, the overall ending and story of the movie.
Did you find yourself at any point sort of dazing out of the movie and sort of and then waking back up and realizing that things were still happening?
Yeah, sometimes every now and then, but the action usually stayed enough that it's like, I know something's about to happen. I didn't really daze out necessarily. It got a little slow and boring sometimes.
Right. It's not an awful movie, but it's not like offensively bad. It's just kind of junk foodish, and that's fine. I thought the first Independence Day was actually smarter than most people laid it out to be. There were a lot of characters in that movie you cared about, and they did a lot of good things setting up storylines in a very short amount of time. So I was a big fan of that. I loved the pacing of the original. This one, don't care anything about the new characters. This isn't going to do anything for Liam Hemsworth's career. The absence of Will Smith didn't bother me. The absence of Randy Quaid, that type of character, did. They were in desperate need of a Randy Quaid type character that was a little off the beaten path, that was willing to really pull the heartstrings just because he was always trying to do the right thing and he never really could. So I think they were missing that character. They tried to make up for it, I think, in some of the other characters' motivations. But once again, this movie fell flat for me. I give it a D+. If you enjoy it, great. This isn't going to stop me from watching Independence Day on repeat all July 4th.
No.
It'll probably be aired all over cable July 4th in a marathon-style movie. It's one of those holiday movies where you can just watch it back to back to back, different parts of it, and eventually you see the whole movie throughout the day. So I will continue to love Independence Day. This didn't take away from the original. It looks like this could potentially be a franchise moving forward. We'll see how this one does. If you want it to be a franchise moving forward, you better go see it. But I give it a D+. John gives it a C-. If you've gone and seen it, tell us what you think in the comment section below. If you haven't seen it and you don't plan on seeing it, tell us why. We'd love to know. If you've seen a great movie lately that you want to recommend to us, we'd love to hear about it. What did you say? Warcraft. Video game guy. That's the reason he's been saying graphics the whole time. Anyway, thank you for watching this first edition of Melton Talks Movies. I'm Tim Melton. Thank you, Jon Lunceford, for watching this with me. I hope the next movie we go and see is a little bit better. Have a good time at the movies, everybody.